In the previous lecture, we talked about the detection and correction of missing values, outliers, and noise values. In this lecture, we are going to get deep into the detection and correction process. And for that, we need to identify whether the detection is going to be local or a global process. Now, it does not apply to missing values because if a value is not provided, it's a missing value, either the context is local or global. However, it's going to affect the detection of noise values and outliers. So, in case of a noise value, if we are looking into this whole column of data and identifying whether this cell has a value that is a noise value or not, or if this value is a noise value, then this detection is called global detection of noise values. However, another approach would be to separate the data into two parts. Like in this case, we already have the labels provided. So if we could make two sets of data, one with all the instances having label as A and another with all the instances that have labels as B. And then we can apply the detection of noise values in this part of the data, and that would be a local detection. The same way we can apply local detection for the class B instances as well. Local detection can make more sense because the value of text may be in one range for one set of objects and in a completely different range for another set of objects. However, if there isn't much of a difference, we can go with the global approach. We can also use the local approach in absence of labels. Now, if we assume that the labels are not provided, in that case, we can apply clustering. And that is going to separate out all the instances into different clusters. And of all these instances belonging to different clusters, now in that case, to detect whether this value is a missing value, we would make use of all the values that belong to this cluster to detect. The same way, for detecting a value to be a noise value, the values of this cluster can be considered. So this approach is called local detection of outlier or noise values. The same can be applied to the correction process also. Either a correction can be local or global. Now, as we have a missing value over here, in order to come up with a value that would fix this and would give us less trouble, we may consider all the values that we have in the dataset to identify an appropriate value for this cell. Such an approach would be called a global approach. However, if we use a mechanism to separate out the data into different parts, like in this case, either through the labels that we have got or some other mechanism with clustering the data, then in that case, considering only a subset of the data to identify or correct the value of this missing value is going to be a local approach. The same applies to the noise values also. If we are only considering these values to identify a good value with which we would replace this noise value would be a local detection. However, a value that is identified by using all these values of the column text, then that would be a global correction.